You're listening to the Intercoastal Podcast, part of the Destination Marketing Podcast Network. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Intercoastal Podcast. I'm Daquan Mickens. The Beaufort Oyster Festival is held every January and is one of our most exciting festivals. To tell us about what's new with this year's edition of the festival, we have our friend Ashlee Houck from BAHA. Welcome back to the show, Ashlee.
Thank you, Daquan. Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime. We love talking about the festival. We love for visitors to know about the festival, and not only just visitors, but it's one of our staples now since it's been going on for so long. People look forward to the Oyster Festival. When they hear it, they're like, "Oh, that actually sounds like a good festival." Can you tell us the list of participants this year and the ties to tables as well?
Well, there's a long list. If you go on bfthospitality.com, you can see all the various restaurants. We do have some newcomers. We have Chef Frank's Bistro.
Mm-hmm.
That is in Port Royal, South Carolina. So this isn't just the Beaufort area. This is northern Beaufort County. We have Saltus, Plums, Hearth, Breakwater. Fish Camp is also in Port Royal. So that's one of the favorites. They always do the deviled egg that I love, and I've talked about on previous episodes. But Huon Bay is on there, and a bunch of other amazing restaurants from the Beaufort region.
And for those who are listening and hearing about the Oyster Festival for the first time, could you give us a quick rundown of like the time and when's a good time to come and experience it?
Yeah, so the festival actually kicks off this Thursday, January 9th, and that's Tides to Tables Restaurant Week. We want to bring as much activity as we can over the next 11 days. So you can come, you can stay, or if you're a local, go out, enjoy the cuisine. But then the festival dates are the 18th and 19th, so Saturday and Sunday. And we have to do it during the day because it does get a little chilly in the evenings.
Mm-hmm.
Festival kicks off about 11 o'clock on Saturday, and then on Sunday, opens back up again at 11 and ends at 4 p.m.
Yeah, and could you tell people who are locals or people who love to run, you guys host a 5K. Could you tell the listeners about that?
Yeah, so there's various events clear throughout, again, the week and the weekend. We do a cornhole tournament, we do a culinary competition, but then we also have the Oyster Boogie 5K. So that's kind of play on words. It's a fun thing that we put together probably 4 years ago, I think was our first one. That starts Saturday morning. You can register, again, on the bfthospitality.com site. You can go on there, register for the run, and you can register day of. If you decide, weather permitting, you can go ahead and just pop on over and run.
Yeah, and you guys have great giveaways, not necessarily giveaways, but rewards for running.
Mm-hmm.
Your shirts are amazing. I still wear my Oyster Festival shirt around the house. And then on my desk, I have one of the oyster medals, like the little piece for the oyster, sitting on my desk with all my trinkets. So you guys definitely do a great job of picking and selecting what to give to people who do participate in those type of events.
Yeah, we take great pride, and it's something that kind of organically became a tradition within the Oyster Boogie, was a spinner medal.
Mm-hmm.
So each year we've had a medal that spins or have some type of moving part, and people love that. It becomes a collector series, and then people do it year over year. The event has grown. We have paired with Sea Island Heritage Academy, which is a school out on St. Helena.
Mm-hmm.
We're supporting them this year, and they will receive a specific amount of proceeds. They'll also be at the festival if anyone wants to come and learn exactly what they're doing. Education, that is a big part of the festival. The various educators that are going to be there that we can support, whether it's through ecology, USCB Marine Program, the DNR are going to be there. Again, it's a sustainable festival as well. So every oyster that comes through the festival is not only local, but it goes back out into the waters to regenerate the oyster beds that, of course, we're eating, essentially.
Yeah. And you don't hear of festivals like this where it's every aspect of it benefits something else. It's definitely bigger than the festival itself. It's for the community, and it's for the people who work in the community. It's for the ecosystem of the community. So you guys doing that is definitely beneficial to everybody who's involved.
Yeah. The reason behind this festival is our local economy. Of course, we have a tourism economy and we have our peak seasons, but January, folks are coming off the holiday. It's possibly not as warm here. Maybe we're looking at 50, 60 degree weather, and we want folks to come and visit, but we also want to do something for the locals. And that all integrates into the local businesses, and people are coming, they're staying, they're eating, they're drinking, they're buying things in that whole, like you said, ecology of the economy. So
Yeah, and it gives people a reason to get out and do stuff,
Yeah.
versus, staying in when it's cold. People always want to get out and have some good food, oyster, especially in the South and in the Low Country. People love a oyster roast, and you
Yes.
guys having a festival for oysters is a great benefit.
I truly believe that our oysters are the best in the world.
Oh,
And I
definitely.
invite anyone and everyone to come try Beaufort, South Carolina oysters.
I agree. For those who are returning attendees, what's different this year at the festival compared to previous ones?
So the festival is pretty much the same. The cake is baked, how I like to say it. But we did change a few things. We have some different vendors this year. We brought on Food Savvy, but
Hmm.
we'll also have our iconic vendors like Seagull Market. We'll have Bradenton Farm oysters this year.
Hmm.
We'll have Lady Island oysters are going to be there. Like I said, Food Savvy, Mother Smoking Good. Those are some of our vendors. And then we're bringing on Sassy Sweets. That's going to be our dessert vendor. And then there's something that we've always done every year, and that's support the local Girl Scouts because it's cookie time. So
Hmm.
we invite the Girl Scouts to come and sell their cookies. And again, that's something more philanthropic from our organization that we want to support them. So
Yeah, that's nice of you guys.
yeah.
I want to ask, I'm familiar, but for maybe someone who might not be familiar, how different can oysters be from different locations?
So, oysters, it's all from the DNA. So, if you're looking at your Chesapeake oysters, most of those are very flat, large. The shell is large, the meat of the oyster is large. And I'm not a professional as far as DNA and oyster culturing goes, but I have talked to a lot of our local farmers, and it's an extremely dynamic process in cultivating these oysters. Some of these oyster beds, of course, are hundreds and hundreds of years old, but then you have the oyster farmers that have dialed it in and have figured
Hmm.
their genetics of oyster farming. And a lot of these farmers are going to be at the festival that you can actually have that conversation and understand it. And then a lot of them open up their farms throughout the year for you to come and learn and see what is considered a seedling of the oyster in
Hmm.
its state. And then those seedlings go out into the natural waters surrounding Beaufort and they're farmed. So
Hmm.
even though they aren't considered a wild oyster, they're still farmed within the same waters as the wild oysters. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting. I didn't realize how interesting a mollusk is since I started planning this festival.
Yeah, it's definitely intricate as far as the farming of them goes.
Hmm.
And anytime I see a picture of oyster farmer out on his boat with the boots and the overalls, and they're just got buckets and buckets of oysters, I just can visualize like a old like Coca-Cola commercial or something
Hmm.
where like it's in black and white and you see them working and like
It's iconic
yeah, it's
imagery. It's
iconic.
100% iconic imagery, and it's
Hmm.
not something that you can see anywhere else. Of
Yeah.
course, there's farmers all around our country and our world, but here in South Carolina, our watermen and oyster farmers, and they've got some stories to tell. I know
Yeah.
Captain Craig, I think he's been on the podcast. He's got some stories that nobody else could tell, and he's seen some things that no one else has ever seen out there, whether he's shrimping or cultivating oysters. So, and
Yeah.
and one other thing with our oysters here, we don't have a lot of freshwater tributaries that are coming out into the oceans. And some of the other areas, they're getting a lot more fresher water. And
Mhm.
what that does is change the whole taste of the oyster. Our oyster is very briny and salty. And
Mhm.
then during January, it does get a little bit cooler in our area. So the oyster plumps up because it's told, hey, I need to conserve a lot more of my calories
Mhm.
and they plump up. So they're not only salty and briny, but they're plumpy, juicy. And then within the oyster is something as known as liquor. And of course, it's not liquor as what most people would think, beer, wine, so forth, but it's the juices that oyster has obtained.
Mhm.
And then something I don't think we've talked about in the past is the little pea crab
Mhm.
inside. And I didn't know this, but when you open up an oyster, sometimes they'll have little tiny crabs in there and they're known as pea crabs. And that's just a form of good luck down
Oh,
here.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you learn something new every day. So with all the hard work that goes into hosting an oyster festival or any festival at all here in Beaufort, do you have any fun behind the scenes stories from planning this year's festival?
Oh, let me think about that. So, this is our 5th year. I cannot believe I'm saying that. I feel like we were just coming out of the pandemic and planning a festival that we were only allowed 250 people. But now I blink. And again, we have this 5th year festival. It's considered a heritage festival now here in Beaufort. I would definitely say the friendships and the partnerships that we have built, not only through our volunteers, but
Mhm.
our board members. Our board is so engaged in the festival and showing up, and they know their part. And we've got Stacy, one of our board members, she manages the ticket booth, and we've got Chet and Peach, she does the culinary aspect of it, and everybody is on hands. And at the end of the festival, we always sit around a table and we consume the last pan of oysters. And we celebrate, and we usually may have a beer or two and cheers. And we're all talking about the food and how good it is. And we actually get to enjoy it more so from a festival goer's perspective. And it's just a celebratory moment that I look forward to every year now. And again, the relationships that we've built. We also do a volunteer appreciation event the Sunday after the festival, and
Mhm.
we do that at Shell Ring and have another oyster roast, and we get to meet the volunteers. And those folks have now just not become volunteers, but they've become friends and supporters of the festival, and we utilize them for other events. And again, just building those partnerships, it's been great.
Yeah, I'm sure having like that connection to volunteers who are like, "Oh yeah, we're here every year, or we want to come every year, or we'll be back next year."
Yeah,
It definitely helps build that connection to
yeah.
where now you know you can rely on these people because that's the biggest part of any festival or any
They are the heart.
organization is the volunteers and the people who make things go and the people who
Yes.
show up and clean up and put things together.
Yes,
That is everything.
me and Caroline, we are two planners within this festival, but the heart of the festival are our board members, our volunteers. The city of Beaufort has a big part in the festival, and without them, it would not run accordingly. And of course, we need our vendors and all those folks as well. But one big shout out goes to our military.
Mhm.
They present a lot of our volunteers that come over from the Marine base, the Navy hospital area, and we couldn't do it without them. I mean, we're talking 50 plus volunteers throughout the weekend, and I'm so grateful for them. I'm grateful for our sponsors. I think this is a great opportunity to shout out to some of our sponsors, Barrier South, TCL, that's our technical college, the Low Country. They've been amazing partners. They have a lot to do with our culinary competition and
Mhm.
throughout the year. Fripp Island Resort, we love them. Coastal Waste, they're great partners. They do all of our trash, porta johns, and so forth. We've got an amazing group of people that support us, the festival, and ultimately the hospitality and tourism industry.
I agree. You can't talk Oyster Festival without mentioning food. So, could you tell us some of the other food besides the oysters at the festival?
The festival always has something for everyone, whether it is the oysters on the iconic oyster fire pits being roasted that you could actually watch and see how they've done it for hundreds of years with the burlap soaked mat,
Hmm.
or you can get turkey legs. There's usually French fries, hot dogs for the kids if they're not into it. But I'll tell you what, I've never seen a kid turn down an oyster at one of these festivals.
No.
They love them.
Yeah, they do. They
And
just
it's
want to
funny
try it at
watching them eat them,
least.
they enjoy them. But other than that, we'll definitely have some barbecue, and we'll have Girl Scout cookies
Yeah.
and cheesecakes, and they'll surprise us. They always have something great, and I'm really excited for the culinary competition to see
Yeah.
this year's winner.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's something for everybody, and that's one of my favorite things to look at post festival is the pictures. You just can see everyone having fun, the kids loving it and being outside playing in the big field. There's just so much space. You see
Yeah,
the cornhole, people who are with a beer in their hand, just enjoying the low
having a good
country and
time.
everything that the low country has to provide.
Yeah. And I love that the locals are excited to share this tradition. Like I moved down here. I'm from West Virginia. We didn't have these type of events,
Hmm.
and I certainly didn't know what an oyster roast was. And so the locals really intercept the visitors and want to share this experience with them.
Yeah, I agree. Is there anything that a first time attendee should know before attending a Oyster Festival?
No, just look at the weather, and if it's going to be a little chilly, throw on a coat, bring some gloves. If you want to bring your shuck and knife, bring them. We'll have them there. We'll have tons of merch, t-shirts. We're dog friendly, we're pet friendly. So if you want to bring a well-behaved pet, do so. There's no admission fee, so you just show up and then you purchase however many tickets you think that you're going to need and go and enjoy.
And before we go, can we get a rundown of the festival dates one more time for those who are listening?
Yeah, so Restaurant Week starts January 9th, runs until the 19th. The festival dates are January 18th and 19th in Henry C. Chambers Waterfront Park.
And what time should people start showing up if they were to come to the festival?
Saturday, festival grounds open at 10 o'clock. Food will be prepared by 11, and then the festival wraps up Sunday at 4 p.m.
This has been a great episode, Ashlee. Thanks again for coming back on the episode to talk about the Oyster Festival. Like I said, it is now a staple in the Beaufort community. People love it. People look forward to this time of year because of this Oyster Festival. So that's why people also want to come and visit. Like I said, I go out on the road and I tell people about all our festivals, and I make sure to let them know, like, oh, we have an Oyster Festival. And they're like, oh, that sounds like an amazing festival. So you guys are doing a great job, and keep it up, and look forward to this year and seeing what happens with this year and moving forward.
Thank you, Daquan. Let's get to shucking. I'm ready.
Thank you all for listening to the Intercoastal Podcast. You can follow us on social media at visit_BeaufortSC on Instagram or at BeaufortSC on Facebook. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll talk to y'all next time. This has been another episode of the Intercoastal Podcast, hosted by Daquan Mickens and the team at Visit Beaufort, Port Royal, and the Sea Islands. Produced by Relic.